Okay, cool. Yeah, your job is the job that all little kids in the world want.
I have a wonderful job. My career has taken me wonderful places to work with wonderful animals and wonderful people. I am nothing but blessed.
So let's get into your story, and I want to begin. I'm coming out of Kansas City, Missouri, just for context. So I want to begin our story with 4 years ago. We were all wrapping our heads around this global pandemic. And now that we're out of it, I'm curious, how did you survive that time period? How did you get through it? And how did it change you?
Sure, that's really an important question. So 4 years ago, I was Washington State veterinarian. So I was responsible for animal health throughout Washington. And as you might remember, Washington was where the pandemic first hit.
Yeah.
So I was involved in conversations with the United States Department of Agriculture, Center for Disease Control, University of Washington's public health people, Washington State University Veterinary School. And what we did together was we came up with the guidance for domestic animals that CDC then adopted for the entire country because everyone was afraid. Everyone was afraid, how is this going to affect animals? Is it transmitted from animals? We didn't have all the answers, but because of my nature, I would rather make a decision, even if it's the wrong one, and change it later rather than do nothing. So it affected me very strongly. It was a very important time, and I was very lucky to be in that position.
So at the end of the day, if I put you in front of a bunch of third graders and to get a handle here in 2024 for what you do for a living,
Sure.
career day, one of the kids looks up and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
The first thing I say is that's a really hard thing to answer because I have a really diverse career. I spend part of my day consulting for the 12 aquariums across the country. I do in-person veterinary work at the Seattle Aquarium. I spend time coordinating agricultural development overseas. I plan projects overseas and I write. So I have no typical days, and that fits me very well.
So when you were in the third grade, was this your dream to become a veterinarian? What was your dream?
No, my dream when I was in third grade was to be a Major League Baseball player.
Okay. Okay. Who was your team?
I had several. One was the Cincinnati Reds, and one was the Baltimore Orioles.
What was the best game that you ever witnessed?
Oh, the best game I ever witnessed was when I was in Baltimore a few years ago with my little boys. They were 6 and 3 at the time, and we got to see the Orioles play, and we got to see Cal Ripken right before he retired. So that was the best game I ever saw.
That's very cool. Yeah.
I do come to Kansas City too. The
Yeah.
Sea Life Aquarium in Kansas City. I come there once per year.
Okay. Excellent. So how did this happen? Take me back to where you were born and raised, the seeds that were planted for you to become who you've become and evolved into this person that takes care of all these animals.
Sure. Well, the most important thing to realize, and this is something I tell veterinary students all the time, I speak at veterinary schools. I tell them that I'm not special. I was just fortunate to be born where I was. I was born in a country where I had choices and people opened doors for me. So when I was a little kid, one of my favorite TV shows was a show called Zoorama. It was filmed at the San Diego Zoo. And one of my childhood heroes was Charles Schroeder, who was a veterinarian and a director. So when I went through high school, I never dreamed I'd have a career with animals. I thought I would be an elementary school teacher. I did a year of student teaching, and I realized I couldn't do that because some of the kids were already left behind. So my former wife said, you need to work with animals. I dropped out of college. I did a couple of years of construction work and I had the opportunity to go to work part-time at the San Diego Zoo. It's a mammal keeper when I was 22 years old. And that first day at the zoo was the best day of my life.
Wow.
I was where I wanted to be. So I did that 5.5 years. I did my bachelor's degree, master's degree on my days off, went to work at SeaWorld in animal care. Still didn't think I'd be a veterinarian. A couple reasons not. One, I'd met a lot of veterinarians, didn't like a lot of them. Two, I didn't think I could stay inside for school for 4 years, but I had the opportunity to go, took advantage of it. And I'm very much like a border collie. I see a shiny object, I have to go to it. And many people have helped me along the way, have mentored me, and gave me the career that I have.
So of all the animals you work with, what's one of your favorite groups of animals that you just people wouldn't expect is the grouping that you like the best?
That's a really great question because I've worked with everything, including killer whales, including gorillas. And people will always think that I will say gorillas or killer whales. My favorite animals are dogs. I love dogs, even though the only dogs I've worked with as a veterinarian are military working dogs in the Army. But I love dogs. I also love working on non-human primates. Why would you like working on monkeys and apes? Because you can treat them like humans. Humans are just shaved monkeys. And so everything that applies to human medicine, you can apply to non-human primates. But they're the only animals I don't like to work with, and I apologize for this, are poisonous snakes. I don't think it's right to be a venomous snake. There's no reason to do that.
Yeah, right. I totally agree. So let me ask you this. Who's been a consistent hero or inspiration in your work in your life?
Sure, I've had several heroes. One was Dr. Charles Schroeder, who was the veterinarian director at the San Diego Zoo,
Yeah.
and I had the opportunity to actually work for him when I was a 22-year-old. He was 72 at the time, and I was raking a llama pen. I was just a young kid, been there a few weeks, and I hear behind me, I hear this man say, "Good morning, Brian." I turn around. It's Dr. Charles Schroeder, my childhood hero. He's got 600 employees, and he knows this 22-year-old kid.
Wow.
So he's one of my heroes. Another one is a gentleman, Dr. Roy Hendrickson, ran the Primate Research Center in Davis. I made a mistake there, bad mistake. Instead of him yelling at me, he said, "When you make a mistake, you will save 20 animals for every animal that you made a mistake with." Another hero. Third one is Dr. Charles Sedgwick. He's passed away. He was a zoo aquarium veterinarian, a zoo veterinarian, NASA veterinarian, teacher at UC Davis, and he taught me to walk gently on the earth and not to be as defiant as my basic nature is. So those are my main heroes.
So my stepdaughter is really into animals. Last year she got a Malinois and thought it was something different. It was going to be a bigger dog, but it was just a little Belgian Malinois. So she just got a Great Dane. And the reason why I'm saying this is that I've watched them as puppies, and I always feel like I get a little better. It's like parenting. You've gone through a lot of incarnation throughout the decades. How how much have you what's been the change for you? What has been the change incrementally over time that's made you better at handling animals and more intuitive to their needs and what needs to be done?
That's a great question. And it's actually made me better. I've evolved as how I work with people and animals, both. And the animals have taught me those lessons. I just published my first book, I Wish the Rainbow Bridge Had Visiting Hours. It's about the dogs in my life from the time I was 2 years old to 2005. And much of what I've learned is from dogs. Dogs teach you to stay in the moment, enjoy the moment, and to be honest. Dogs are always honest with you. So, what I've learned over time incrementally from animals, one is the joy of living, two is the privilege of living, and three is the fascination with life. There's three words that I try to define myself by. One of them is humility, one of them is curiosity, and the third is empathy. And I try to apply those three words to my life every day, which is why I do the volunteer work overseas.
It's fascinating that dogs are that in that realm. I remember when I first got when I had a young family, it was some years ago. I was looking into the whole idea of Caesar Milan and all of the tips that he would give, and how dogs, especially when they're puppies, and even big dogs, they feed off of your energy. So, like, if the puppy feels that I'm nervous, they're going to inherently feed off of that. But if you're cool with them and they're doing their thing because they're doing potty training and all of that, they're so intuitive. They're so good with reading you and being good about that. That's fascinating for all the animals that you're around. That I'm not surprised because I'm a dog guy. I have a lot of dogs at home, but they are really the ones that, and they're always so excited to see you. Like even in the morning, like when my alarm goes off, it's that Pavlovian bell. They're ready to roll and they're happy. Their tails are wagging, and they really are intuitive creatures.
They are. Interesting story about that. As I tell you, the dogs have helped me evolve. In my early 20s, I was in the verge of getting a divorce. I wasn't who I should be, and I wasn't as patient on my dogs as I should have been. There were dogs that had dedicated their life to me, and I didn't fully appreciate it. But over time, it's been very obvious that I'm empathetic with dogs. When I was in the Middle East, I was working with military working dogs on an air base, and one of the dogs was such a good bite dog that she had been taken to Lackland to be the bite demonstration dog. She'd done 4 deployments when I got her, and they always muzzled her because she wanted to bite everyone. She crawled up in my lap,
Wow.
and the handlers said, "We hope you never turn to the dark side because if we send a dog in, it's going to be sitting on your lap.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit of a dog whisperer. I'm not a dog trainer, but they know I love them. They know I care about them. And they give me strength. They give me strength when times are hard, when I've had a loss, like a loss of a pet. The dogs that remain will give me strength.
Yeah. I think they always pass the baton on. I was thinking about that the other day. We had to put one of my favorite animals of all time, like she was wonderful. We had to put her down in November, and I just saw the leash the other day, and our new dog had the leash, and how they're smelling the scents, and how all of that just kind of in very small incremental ways gets passed along, and it's amazing. Because you do have to start over. We just outlive them. It's the row that we have to do as humans. It's just going to happen, but you just got to continue that love chain and not. Hopefully, you don't get brokenhearted enough to stop it.
It breaks your heart, though. We lost two of our
Yeah.
Bernese Mountain Dogs in the last year and a half,
Well,
and we have two puppies that are a year old, and they have helped heal our hearts.
yeah,
The new dogs never replace the old ones, but they replace in a different way, and they give you their love unconditionally.
they
We're
certainly
lucky
do.
to have them on Earth with us. That's why I write about them. Second book's being edited right now. It will be entitled I Wish the Rainbow Bridge Had Fewer Footprints.
Yeah.
So interesting story about dog loss. A few years ago, my father died. Same year, my first Bernese Mountain Dog died. Felt really guilty because I felt worse about my dog than I did my dad. And I asked my stepson, I said, I feel really guilty about this. Why do I feel worse about Pepper's death than my dad's death? And he said, well, because Pepper never made you angry. And I thought that's really fair. It's really fair.
I think about that with my dog Coco. Like she was always faithful. We always got along, and that was the most heartbreaking thing the morning that I had to realize that she was leaving. Was that she was just so faithful and good. But there's something so good about realizing that as humans, we have that opportunity to have purely untainted good love on this planet, even though it's going to leave us, you know?
Absolutely. Recently, I heard somebody say that the grief that we feel when we lose our pets that love us, it's outweighed by the love that they give us,
Yeah.
many-fold over. But it's hard to feel that in the moment. There's nothing more heartbreaking than the loss of a pet. Nothing more heartbreaking.
Yeah, absolutely. So, of all of these animals that you've taken care of and all these adventures you've had, what's one of your favorite professional success stories?
Sure, that's a really great story there. There's a lot of them. I could tell you that I tend to remember the ones that don't go well better. But there's been a variety of success stories, and usually it involves a snow leopard. Let's talk about snow leopard. I was at Point Defiance Zoo Aquarium in Tacoma, Washington. Snow leopards are pretty much solitary animals. We had a male snow leopard. His name was Saul. We had a female named Zinka. One day, Saul attacked Zinka. He had her down. He bit her many times. We managed to get him out of the cage, and she wasn't down completely, but I went in and hand syringed her with anesthetic so we could treat her. We radiographed her, and she had punctures everywhere, a lot of crushed muscle. She had a little hole in her chest, so one lung was partially deflated. So we did a lot of treatment on her, put her in the back in a holding area, and she didn't want to eat. She felt so bad, she didn't want to eat. But what she did want to do is snarl at me. So what I would do is twice a day, I'd go in at night and I'd do it in the morning, is I took a fork on the end of a stick and I put food on the fork. And when she snarled at me, I put the food in her mouth. And she wasn't telling me she wanted to eat. She was telling me she wanted to bite. But she ate the food and miraculously she recovered. So I regard that as one of my bigger successes.
Yeah. So, what's been your favorite zoo, favorite place to see animals?
Well, my favorite place to see them is in the wild,
Yeah.
but unfortunately, there's not a lot of wild left. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of zoos that do a really great job. One of my favorites is the Jacksonville Zoo in Florida. They do an outstanding job. Point Defiance Zoo and Aquarium does an outstanding job too. If it was up to me, and I've felt this way since I was that 22-year-old kid, if we didn't need zoos, if animals could be protected in the wild, we shouldn't have zoos. But the wild is progressively decreasing. And so we've got to get a message out there, not just about the animals, but about us, because the biggest global threat on Earth today is climate change. It's
Yeah.
impacting humans, impacting animals. So if the animals can be our messengers, they can be our interpreters, give us a reason to care, then so be it.
I don't want to get in anything political, but I just don't understand how the entirety of the scientists on this planet say we have an issue that's dire if we don't respond, yet there's still detractors. And we see that with polar ice caps and with other
Mhm.
environmental changes that are absolutely taking out endangered species.
Right. When I was in Canada, I was head of the International Polar Bear Conservation Center. And within 20 years, we maybe will have 40% of the polar bears left that we have now because they can only hunt on the ice. Part of that is there's been a war on science. The war on science started about 30 years ago, and there's been a lot of money put in it to try to sow seeds of doubt, because as you know, seeds of doubt are better than an accusation,
Yeah.
because seeds of doubt you can't defend. So I'm hopeful. I speak about climate change a lot. I spoke about it in Africa this year. I've spoken about it in Iraq, and I speak about it at universities. And I truly believe that we're going to correct it. But unfortunately, people always do what's right after they've tried everything else.
Yeah.
So I'm positive we're going to make it, but we have to try harder. And we have to, if you look at the science, like you say, you look at the science, it's hotter than it's ever been before. There's more carbon in the atmosphere than ever been before. The oceans are hotter than they've ever been and becoming less productive. We're having more natural disasters, more hurricanes, more tornadoes. Right now, Kenya's flooded. 2020, much of Africa was flooded, followed by locust swarms. So we just need to wake up and look past the present.
Yeah. So of all of these things that you've done and evolved and become in your life, what are you the proudest of?
Oh, the proudest thing I'm of, besides my children, is I ran a nonprofit in San Diego. It's called the Living Coast Discovery Center. And the city of Chula Vista took away 90% of their funding overnight. I was the board president, and I managed to keep that place open. And the reason it's important is it's in an underserved community where many of the children are Hispanic, they're from single parent households. They can't afford to go to the San Diego Zoo, but they can afford to go to this local nature center and learn about science, learn about animals, learn about the environment. So that's probably what I'm proudest of.
So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, colleagues, clients, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Oh, I know who I am. I'm someone that has too big a heart, someone that cares too much. I'm too soft for this world. And I don't have enough time left to do all the things I want to do to make the world a better place. Give you an example. 2016, I was the special forces in the Congo, and I would call my wife. I'd see dying children every day. I called my wife from the tent and I said, I don't think I'm doing a bit of difference here. I don't think I'm making a bit of difference. And she said, because she's much wiser than I am, she said, for those people and those animals on that day, you made a difference. So that's really my perception of myself, is every day make a difference, no matter how small it is, helping an animal, helping a homeless person, helping a veterinary student that doesn't have career direction, but try to make a small difference every day.
Well said. So we've scratched the surface. If anyone wants to get your book and learn more
Absolutely.
about you, where do they go? What's the best place?
Okay, so the book, I Wish the Rainbow Bridge Had Visiting Hours, is on Amazon. Looks like this. And then I also have a website, www.briandjoseph.com. And I appreciate your time. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
It's fascinating. You got a great soul. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate your time today. Best of luck with all the work. And you are undoubtedly sending ripples through this world with all the good work you do. So thank you for opening up a little bit today. I appreciate it.
I'm lucky to be here, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Take care.